Hey up everybody, welcome back to the Audi Cycling YouTube channel, where today I am going to be telling you who I am putting onto my Paris-Nice team. Of course the race starts tomorrow or today depending on when you are going to be watching this, but all the start lists are up to date, so this team is fully up to date and is likely not to change. My first rider is Wout van Aert, because I think that Wout van Aert could win so many of the stages here at Paris-Nice. He could really win a lot of the opening stages, the TT, maybe even some of the rolling ones towards the end. I think he is probably the most dangerous rider in this race, and the one that I strongly recommended in my preview for VELOGAMES Paris-Nice that you all put onto your teams, so a fairly easy one for me to pick there. My second rider is Adam Yates, because if you see my Paris-Nice preview, which is doing really well, so thank you for that, I predict that Adam Yates is actually going to win this race after doing so well at the UAE Tour, only behind Pogačar, who of course has just won Strade Bianche, so obviously Yates is not too far behind him there. And yeah, I think that Yates could easily win the uphill finish up the Turini, and he also is pretty good at time trialling, so I think that Yates is going to be a pretty solid pick for me to get a rider onto the podium. My third rider, I did have Nairo Quintana here as of a few hours ago, but after some thinking I've replaced him with Ethan Hayter, because Hayter will provide a bit more of a well-rounded option. He can sprint a bit more, and he's also much better at time trialling, which means that throughout the first 4 stages he could post top 10 results, and who knows what he could do in the latter stages in the mountains, because he did do okay at the Volta Algarve in terms of GC, so maybe he can try to do something else towards the in some of the hillier terrain at the end of Paris-Nice. Sonny Colbrelli, of course, another puncher, and that is going to be a theme of this team. I'm going very puncher heavy. Colbrelli, again, a big favourite for stage 1 and also for stage 3, and he's so good at climbing that he could honestly contest some of the later stages, which are kind of more medium mountain terrain. My fifth rider is probably my second GC rider, and that is Matteo Jorgensen. After the Tour de la Provence, he was a pretty easy pick for me. I think he's the best 10-pointer out there. He seems to be the leader for Movistar, he's got the number 1 on his back, and I think that Jorgensen could very easily post a top 10 on GC, maybe even a top 5. And my sixth rider is Brian Coquard. For me, having Wout van Aert, Ethan Hayter, Sonny Colbrelli and Brian Coquard gives me such a strength in all of the puncher stages. Coquard, I think, is probably one of the better 8-pointers. You could also say Biniam Girmay, some of the other GC guys, but I've gone with Coquard just because of how good he looked at the Volta Algarve. My seventh rider is Gino Mader. I believe that Mader will be out for a bit of, a bit of redemption after losing that stage at Paris-Nice last year to Roglic. I think this is a race he really likes, and he seems to be really good over mountainous kind of breakaways. We saw that at the Giro last year, we saw that at Tour de Suisse last year, and of course we saw this at Paris-Nice last year as well. It seems to be a race he really likes, and he also seems to be kind of like a backup leader for Bahrain Victorious in terms on GC if Jack Haig doesn't do particularly well, so he can maybe get in a breakaway and he could do pretty decent on GC as well. And then my final 2 riders, I've got Oliver Naesen, because he looked really good at the opening weekend, and I think that he could be potentially some kind of reduced sponge sprinter for AG2R. I think that's a pretty decent option for me. And then my last rider is Kevin Vermaker. I think he is probably one of the best 4-pointers. I swapped Loic Vliegen off for Vermaker just because Vermaker seems to be the only climber, or maybe one of the only 2 climbers on Team DSM, so therefore that provides him with a lot more opportunities to try and ride for himself in comparison to Loic Vliegen, who might be riding for Ryan Talame or even Biniam Girmay. And that is my team of 9 riders going to tackle Paris-Nice. So let me know in the comments down below who you are going to be putting onto your teams, and all that is left to say is to keep safe out there, and I'll speak to you in the next video. Salut!